Hi, welcome and thank you for joining us for In Our Voices, a Pearls of Great Price sponsored webinar where you'll be able to hear the raw stories of human trafficking from women who have survived it. First and foremost, I'd like to invite you all into our lives as friends. We know because you're watching that you care, and I ask you to open up your hearts, be filled with compassion, as you join me for some intimate conversations from some very, very brave women who are in fact my personal heroes. I'd also like to thank the Plymouth Canton United Way for graciously funding this event. I'd like to thank Sanctum House as well for the love, the care, and the support they show to many, many survivors. Finally, I'd like to thank Pearls of Great Price. Without them, this couldn't have happened. And if we could just do some housekeeping issues to begin with, there won't be any question and answer today. These can be very difficult topics to discuss. You can submit questions, or if you have a technical problem, feel free to do that via the chat function, and it will only be seen by our panelists. Secondly, there will be a survey that's given out at the end of the webinar via email. We'd like to ask you to complete it so we can know what we did right, what we did wrong, how we can better serve you to serve the victims of human trafficking. Finally, this webinar will be recorded and it will be available on the Pearls of Great Price YouTube station. It will also be available on their Facebook page. I invite you to share it with your friends and to also like the Pearls of Great Price Facebook page. Our primary objective here tonight is the primary objective of Pearls of Great Price. We hope to educate you about human trafficking, and we hope to educate you so that you can protect yourself and your loved ones. More than that, we hope to inspire you to do something about what is in fact the second largest crime in Michigan. And at the end of the conversations with these beautiful women, we'll tell you some ways in which you might do that. A note about the women. Tonight you'll be hearing from Irene, Marina, and Cynthia. They will be with us discussing some incredibly difficult issues. And I would like you to open up your hearts, be full of compassion, see them as the friends and the heroes, the way I see them. And I hope that you can learn from their stories. I hope that their stories reach and touch you the way that they've reached and touched me as well. I think what we're going to hit on here tonight, and what I think will be shown throughout all of the stories, is that human trafficking is in fact a psychological crime. It starts with vulnerability. You may be vulnerable in ways you didn't even imagine, like myself. And then it continues into grooming, where the trafficker creates almost a wilderness of mirrors for the victim, where you don't know who you are, you don't know what you're about. And it's incredibly disorienting. And that's how they can go ahead and exert the control over the women and men that they exploit for profit. What we are talking about is the incredible degradation of human dignity for a huge number of our population who are in fact hidden in the shadows. You may see them at a doctor's office. You may run across them, in a hospital and have no idea what's going on because they have been trained and groomed and brainwashed to stay silent. And this compulsion to stay silent, whether it be through physical aggression, gaslighting, other psychological manipulations, it can be very difficult to overcome. And so again, I would just like to highlight the bravery and the courage and the wellness of the women that you're going to be able to meet tonight. Because in addition to the grooming, in addition to the exploitation of vulnerability for profit, the entire crime hangs on the crux of fear and shame. An individual person is groomed to believe that they aren't worth anything, that they have nothing in their life but fear, and their very being is worthy of shame. And tonight we hope to break those stereotypes, not only for the people watching who are interested and want to get involved, but possibly for other survivors as well. And so tonight you'll hear 4 stories, and I will begin with mine because I too am a survivor of human trafficking. My experience began in May of 2019. I was living by myself I was incredibly vulnerable because I didn't have much of a social life, if I'm going to be honest. I went to work, I went to church, and that was about it. I'm incredibly introverted. And there were traffickers in a trafficking ring operating around me where I live, because in fact, it is everywhere. And I was so naive, I didn't realize it. Eventually, one night, a gentleman came up to my door. His arm was in a sling, and he was sobbing. So I invited him in to take a glass of water, and that's sort of when things changed. The knob was taken off my door. He had myself and my dogs sort of taken hostage. There was physical abuse. There was sexual abuse. At one point, I didn't really know what was going on, but I wasn't able to feed myself. I could only cook for him. He would do something that I learned later at the hospital was called parading. And what he would do is he would take me for a walk, like I was a dog. And during that time on our walks, I would have to bend down and tie his shoelaces. And there are little things like this that get into your head. And this is how they start brainwashing you. This is how they start grooming you. You eat when I say you eat. If you're going to have a drink of water, it's going to come from the trafficker, because you aren't worth anything else. You can't make any decisions for yourself. Everything has to revolve around the trafficker. You owe them your complete loyalty. And it's a strange sort of dance between the trafficker trying to tell you, oh, you know, I love you and I'm going to take care of you and that's why I'm here, to also telling you you're worthless and you couldn't have anyone else and you don't deserve anything. And this little dance, I suppose, went on for 3 days. Luckily, I missed a work shift, and that was unlike me. So an emergency contact was called. Someone came over. It was incredibly dangerous, so I couldn't say anything at that point. But once that person left, the trafficker got really, really nervous. And he desperately wanted to take me to a house he had in Detroit. And what I was able to do was to convince him that, oh my gosh, yes, in fact, I do love you and I will follow you anywhere. And I promise I'll get you some money. Just come to meet with me someplace where I know some people and I'll get you some money. And thankfully that worked. He came with me somewhere that I knew. And I was able to tell the people there that I was feeling unsafe and that I was taken to the hospital. And at that point, I still had no idea what was going on. I didn't know what human trafficking was. And after about a day of me scribbling notes of things that had happened, for instance, he tried to get me to smoke crack. When I wasn't willing to do that, I was assaulted. He tried to get me to go in a car with someone and do whatever that man wanted. The car actually came to where I was living. When I refused to do that, I was assaulted. At one point, he tried to have a woman come in and convince me to do these things. Again, when I refused, it resulted in physical and sexual assault, which was mainly a way to show dominance and to keep me submissive. So as I was sort of relating these incidents that had happened at the hospital, the next day, a psychiatrist and a social worker came in. And they said, okay, you know, sit down. You were a victim of gang-related human trafficking. And that is how I found out what human trafficking is. And that's how I became involved in the issue. And that's how I was able to meet the wonderful women that I'm about to introduce you to. We'll start with Irene. I would point out that all of our situations are different. But again, I would cue you to tune into the similarities, such as vulnerability, grooming, and fear and shame, so that we can start to understand how this works, how they're successful, how this became the second largest crime in Michigan, how these people are running billion-dollar industries. And you would think, oh, why don't women just walk away? It's simply not that easy. These men are very smart. These traffickers know what they're doing. There's actually a handbook out there that they can follow. So if I might, for a moment, invite you to meet Irene, who is brave and courageous and incredibly strong, has a beautiful soul, and it's my pleasure to know her. Hi, Irene, how are you?
Hi. Good.
Thank you for coming to talk about this. So would you like to tell us a little bit about where you were at when you met your first trafficker, or maybe how your trafficker approached you?
I'm not my first trafficker. Well, I met him through a female. I had gotten arrested and I was in jail and I was put in the same area with this girl that I knew from my hometown. And I had nowhere to go. When I left, when they released me, I had nowhere to go. Nobody wanted anything to do with me. And I didn't know about human trafficking. I had had a substance abuse problem. And so when I was talking to her and I told her I have nowhere to go, she gave me this man's phone number and said, you can call him when you leave here and he'll come pick you up and take care of you. So that is indeed what happened. He bought me a cell phone, and then he gave me drugs. So I really wasn't mentally all there. And that's when things started happening, and he brought me to a house where other women were, and then a woman that was like at the top, I guess you could say, and was in charge to start showing us what we had to do. Then he took us to hotels up in Madison Heights, and there was 4 hotels, one on each corner. And that's where he had a lot of his girls, and they didn't stay there, but they had people there watching us. And so they just pretty much had control because it was.
It's sort of like what I said. At one point, the trafficker brought a woman in, and I think that was to make me feel comfortable or make me feel safe or make me feel like there wasn't a threat. So it seems like that might be something that happens very often. And I got the impression that this woman was used that way a lot. And so eventually you got away from this trafficker, and that's fantastic. How did that happen?
Well, I was staying in hotel rooms and it wasn't very sanitary. And I was they were trafficking me, so everything was not sanitary around. And I got an infection, and it started coming through under my arm, and I was very, very sick from it. And a girl that I had known that I was friends with was up there too. And basically she found some other men to come get us. And we threw our luggage over the rail from our room, and then we left with them.
Okay, so it's very difficult to get away by yourself if you aren't in some way lying or having someone come rescue you or put some sort of additional pressure on the trafficker. You encountered a second trafficker. How did he try to appeal to you? You know, they're always trying to appeal to you. How did he try to appeal to you?
Before I left my first trafficker, I was like just nervous and scared, and so one of the girls that had been there for a long time said, well, I know somebody else. And so he came over to her room and introduced me, and he had drugs as well, and he was very, very nice to me. And this girl who is now dead, she was like, yeah, she wants to leave the man and his brother, but she's scared because she doesn't know what to do. But I didn't leave that day. And then after I get left because I was so sick, and then ended up going with other men that was unsafe. I got treated for this infection, and he kept calling me and calling me and calling me and being really nice to me. And until I finally was able to be like, I was healthy enough and I had nowhere to go. He was being nice to me and saying he came and picked me up.
Yeah, it's, they tried it. My experience has been that traffickers initially approach you in a really nice way, in a way that's designed to make you feel safe. But eventually that changes, right? So what happens when, you know, you don't make enough money for them?
Well, the very first night that he brought me to a hotel room, like he hit me the very first night.
Okay.
Um, so
And how does that make you feel? I mean, what, for me, the physical abuse is degrading, right? It makes you feel like you're less than nothing. How do you think they use that? How do you think that plays into it?
I think they do that sort of thing um, to place us under fear, as well as using the drugs um, that they give us. And then they do that as another way of controlling. But then they'll start being really nice to you again after you make them some money. And then it's just
It's a vicious cycle,
yeah.
yeah, of abuse and manipulation.
Yeah, and I actually thought that I was like loved him, so yeah.
But yeah, my trafficker did the same thing. There was always this undertone of fear and shame, but again, like I said, when I finally got him to leave with me, I had to convince him that I was in love with him,
Mhm.
that what he was doing was working, that I needed him emotionally, right?
Yeah.
That's how they do it, and it works. It
Mhm.
absolutely works after a while. How did you eventually escape from him?
Well, I had gotten so physically ill and lost so much weight that my body was literally I was skin and bones. Um, and my face was all messed up, and he stopped making money off me. So he basically just threw me away. Um, and then I ended up back with him a couple years later. But yeah, he basically just threw me away because I wasn't doing anything for him.
So, in your informed and, you know, very intellectual opinion, what do you think traffickers offer to their victims?
They offer a sense of stability.
A sense of stability. They see some vulnerability and they offer a sense of stability.
Yeah, they um, make you feel like they care about you, and at the same time are protecting you and giving you what you want.
They make you think that you want them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your heart like after that?
Um, After that experience, I really didn't know that that was what happened. Um, but um, it's really damaged me in a lot of different ways. So,
Well, I know you, and I know we're all damaged. But I also know how many fantastic things have been working for you and happening for you. How did you navigate the journey from brokenness to really this incredibly complete and whole woman that I see now?
um, see, I got arrested, and then I got put in a place, and and then I found Sanctum House. And it was a really to God in Sanctum House.
Having peace, having real stability, having real love can put the pieces back together. I think, you're evidence of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Irene.
You're welcome.
I hope that Irene's story touched you as deeply as it touched me, and that you were able to see a small picture of what goes in to healing from the kind of grooming and abuse and psychological manipulation that traffickers use. And now I would like to invite you to join me in a conversation with my dear friend Marina. Who's going to have a drink of water first? Hi, Marina. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you for joining us and
You're
sharing your
welcome.
story
You're
and welcoming everyone into your life.
welcome.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about where you were at when you met your first trafficker?
Well, mentally, I was not in a good space. I was really vulnerable. I was young. I was in my addiction. I was kind of, in the streets, and I was homeless. So,
How did he approach you?
it was with the whole grooming process. I've had more than one trafficking experience. So one was, let me take you and get you this, or you want me to get your nails done? And I was young, so something like that. Of course, yeah, sure, that sounded so like nice to me.
Like, oh, this guy is a Prince Charming kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
So that sounded, that was like sweet to me. And, just lure you in so easily, and then just, give you drugs, and you're not in a good mental, like you said, and Irene, when you're vulnerable and you need something, they have something to provide you, plus more.
Yeah. So you mentioned grooming, and we'll get into your personal story a little bit, but I wonder if first you could sort of take a step back from your personal story and tell us what grooming is. Like, if you were going to identify some themes or just enlighten us about some real general things, like what is grooming, how does it work, and how do they use it?
Grooming, it's like they kind of like best way and easiest way to describe it, or in general for people to understand, is like like, for example, like giving you gifts, providing you things, and to make you really happy before they really show you their true colors. Like, the man was like, grooming me, hey, do you want me to do this for you, or get your nails done? Like, if it was a kid, they'd be, buying them toys and money, or just providing you with what you need plus more.
Sort of, can you speak up a little bit as we
Yeah.
go forward, of course?
Yeah.
But sort of treating you like a princess, or
Yeah.
again, if you're a kid, buying you toys.
Yes, really, like really treating you, and just making you really like, wow, this person is great. Providing you with something that you would really be happy with, to make you think they're a great person, really.
For me, what I found is that a lot of the grooming, he was trying to foster a sense of dependence,
Yeah.
like so that I would come to depend on him.
Yeah.
And then once he accomplished that, I would do whatever he said because I needed
Right.
him. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely.
All right. So you've met your first trafficker. You're young. You're vulnerable. He's treating you like a princess, right?
Mhm.
What happens?
So he takes me to a room and, kind of gets straight to the point, really.
Yeah.
Shortly after, that gets me drugs and tells me I have to do this and, um, makes me sell myself. And that was my first experience. And like kind of shows me in a different room, and there's just like a bunch of people, all types of people in there, old, young, um, yeah, boys, like, it just very strange, people drinking and getting high. And I was just like, what's going on? It's like I knew it was going on, but it was just like, how did I end up here? Like so suddenly, had my car. Um, it was just, it was just, you know,
They took my car away right away too.
yeah,
Like my car was gone, like
yeah, that was like all
very soon.
that was like the
Yeah,
only thing that I had to my name.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So they leave you with nothing,
Yeah.
right? Like my Facebook account was hacked right away. My car is gone. You're just in this place with now nothing but the trafficker and what he wants from you. And how long did that last for you, that first experience? How long were you in that?
That one was pretty short, I would say, just a week or so.
Okay.
And yeah, I just somehow convinced him that I needed to go back and gather some things, and I was gonna get back. And I mean, he just believed me, really. I don't, and I mean, I obviously never came back.
That's,
but
yeah, that's sort of how I did it too. Like you
yeah,
just convinced them of something to
yeah,
try to have a moment away.
yeah, my car was not really in good shape. I think he
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know, but yeah.
So you got away, and then eventually you came in contact with another trafficker, right?
Mhm.
Um, how did you encounter him? How did that come about?
Um, well, I was living with a man, and I had got into an argument with him, and it had got physical. So I left walking, and I broke my phone, and I was had like a busted lip and stuff like that. And um, there was a guy at the liquor store, and with a few people in the car, and I thought that it was safe and stuff.
Why did you think it was safe? Who was in the car?
Well, there was two younger girls, and there was a baby in the car. So like, to me, that seems safe. Like the baby made it seem like it was safe. I don't
Yeah.
know. I automatically, to me, that like, okay, it's safe to get in here.
This is a
Yeah,
family.
the two girls, they were younger, and they were like, it just seemed perfectly fine. They were like, do you need help? And they're like, you can come hang out with us. I'm like, okay. And it was not.
It was not okay.
It was
You
not.
you kind of touched on something that I think came up both in my story and Irene's story. So at one point, my trafficker brought a woman in to try to convince me. Um, Irene talked about, there being like sort of a woman in charge.
Mhm.
Did you experience that too? How did that work?
Yeah, it seems like there's always like the trusted, or like the top girl at times, that, is like the top one, or the trusted one, or whatever. And yeah, that's,
Do you think traffickers do that to make the other women feel safe? Like, oh, here's a woman and you're taking orders from her?
I don't think it's to feel safe. I think it's kind of like to have even more dominance, like there's somebody else over you in a way too,
So there's like
like just another person in charge of you.
like you've got your direct supervisor, and then she's
Yeah.
got her boss. I mean, it is almost like a corporate structure,
Yes.
is what it seemed like to me. It's a corporation basically that they're running. And so this second experience where you felt safe, like you were given again this impression of safety,
Yeah.
right? How did you get away from that?
Well, that one was, had a little more like violence to get away, so that one, yeah,
Okay.
that one was nice,
How-
simple.
So how do you think if you can draw on your personal experience to the grooming, the control, how does control enter into it? How do they use control?
Um, I think like mind control, just, I mean, they control you with drugs. They control you mentally, and they just make you think that you're nothing and that you're worth nothing. I mean, it's not like they let you do much. I mean, I feel like they really have control over you in every way possible.
How do you think, how do you think they figure out what you need going in? I mean, how do they figure out what you need when they approach you?
Um, I mean, they kind of, a lot of times it's like sometimes they build a relationship beforehand. It kind of depends. Some people, some traffickers are like, obviously really sneaky. And like you said, it's like there's pretty much a handbook. They know what they're doing. It's like they get to know you, or even if it's very shortly, like act like they're just very sneaky and conniving. They get to know you and act like they're very genuine, and they really find out what your needs are, and then they provide you with that, and then it's like they pull it right under you, and then they make you rely on them for exactly that, to where you need them. So that's just control right there. So they make you rely on them for everything, and that's that.
I know when my experience was done, I was really an empty shell. And I think a lot of it was the brainwashing. A lot of it was the control aspect. It really messes with your head, and it messes with your inside and your sense of worth. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what does it do to your inside? So you're away from the trafficker. You are sitting with everything that's happened. What's going on inside?
Um, Inside, I feel like you question yourself all the time. Personally, I always question myself. I questioned everybody around me. I felt like everybody around me was like I couldn't trust anybody. Um, I I always felt like there was like everybody had bad intentions somehow. Um, I felt really, I mean, really hurt in general. It was really hard for me to open up in general, even when I came to where I was, just filled with anxiety. I still struggle with issues, but I'm doing much better now. But it was really hard to open up, even just in therapy and stuff like that. But yeah, it really was hard.
I know for me, it abolished any sense of trust. I felt like the world was a cold, dark place. I also felt like I couldn't trust myself, because how did I let this happen to me? Do you struggle with those feelings at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. Yeah.
And I can remember very clearly being at the hospital and saying, I need help because I think everyone's going to hurt me. I think everyone is out to hurt me. Did you walk away with a feeling like that too?
Paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, to be honest, I still struggle with paranoia.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I do. To be completely honest, I think I've gotten better with it, but I do struggle with paranoia, thinking everyone has ulterior motives. I mean, I still nice to give people the benefit of doubt about a lot of things, but yeah, thinking that there's always something bad's going to happen, or having a bad feeling about things, and
Where everything's going great, I have what I need. At any moment, it's all going to be ripped out from
yes,
underneath me.
yes, or thinking a lot of times that person may be a trafficker. They're like, what are they doing? Or
But yeah,
just spotting people out.
yeah, I almost see traffickers everywhere now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that's part of what I've come to term, and I think, through trauma therapy, you too, that's something that I now call trauma brain, right? I am left with trauma brain. And for me, what that is a heightened sense of paranoia,
Mhm.
of danger, of fear, of not being able to trust. How have you experienced trauma brain? Have you experienced it? What does it look like for you?
For me, I have a hard time remembering a lot of things. I think I've gotten better with that too, though, but like I just block a lot of things out from my past. There's a lot of things I just forget, or I just don't want to think about, or like get, obviously PTSD, but get like hypersensitive, get scared easy. I get just like you said, paranoid. I don't know.
I know for me, like, especially when you said, I have difficulty remembering. Like, I'm not even sure how long I was with this guy. And I think I've heard it referred to as dissociative amnesia, right? So
Yeah.
I just have flashes. And when I was at the hospital, I would like have a flash and write it down. And I can't put it in any clear chronological order. It's like that part of my mind
Yeah.
is jumbled. And from what I understand, like the mind does that on purpose. It jumbles it to protect you. And for me personally, having trauma brain, suffering from the PTSD, you kind of come to think, oh, I can rely on my brain for anything. And you realize how delicate you are.
Yeah.
How delicate I would say we all are, and how easily broken, we all are.
Right.
But also fixable, because
Yes.
I'm not going to give your details, but I know you're doing fantastic things.
Thank you.
And so what did you need? I mean, and I know you and Irene are close, and I think we'd even speak for both of you here. What did you need to get to the place where you guys are doing great? I mean, if there were viewers here who wanted to help, what can they do? What do you need?
I would say definitely one-on-one trauma therapy, a lot of grace, a lot of understanding from others, a lot of love, people that understand, probably other survivors around me that, like I said, understand. And it really helped for me being, in the program that I'm in, Sanctum House, to just really like relax and have a moment, and have that like moment of clarity and just that time to myself to really like have a while to like just kind of see what's going on, and then get reestablished to the real world after some time. And
yeah, I think I was at Sanctum House with you, and I needed the time to unpack.
Yeah,
to start
slow process.
A very slow process.
If that's what's needed, is like a slow process, really.
You need 3 or 4 months of quiet and space so you can start to see. For me, it was to see myself, right? So once I start to unpack all of this, it's a question of, am I a human being even still? And to look inside and try to find the human being that remains, and then to make some conscious choices about what I want to do with my life.
Right.
And I don't know if you can echo my sentiments on this, but I needed friends.
Yeah, that too.
I needed friends, and I needed the love that friends give, and I needed their time.
A support system as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. And thank you, Maria. I really appreciate it. You did wonderfully. You and I both have. At the end of today's webinar, I will tell you ways that you can get involved, and so that you can be the friend that these women need. We aren't done wrenching your heart out yet, though. We have another survivor that we're going to talk with. Her name is Cynthia, and she too has just built a castle from the rubble, I guess is a good way to put it. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
Thank you for your bravery and your courage, and for being here to help.
Thanks, Claire.
So could you do me a favor?
I can.
All right. Why don't you tell me, how did you meet your first trafficker? So we've heard a couple of different ways that it happens. How did you come to meet your trafficker?
Oh, well, I was at a bar.
Okay.
And a friend of mine wanted to pay for a taxi for me to go to like West Branch.
Did you have a car at the time?
No car,
Okay.
no license.
Okay.
I'd lost my children, long story, but I'd lost my children to Child Protective Services. So I was gonna go party with him and do cocaine. So we had like an almost 2-hour car ride, something like that. In the taxi.
In the taxi.
Yeah,
Okay.
alone with the taxi driver. So obviously there's small chat. Small chat turns into more chat and more chat. Me not having a car, I was always thinking of different ways to try to save myself money because I was able to see my children. It just, I had to pay for rides here and there and all that kind of stuff. So I got his number and we became like Facebook friends. And from Facebook friends, I went and partied. Then I had, my friend actually drove me back to where I was staying at my dad's house. And I would message him. Like I had to go to the store, I had to go do this, I had to go that, I had to go see my children. And he would drive me places. Cheap, like very cheap, $5-10.
And so what did you think the relationship was at that point? I mean,
Like we had become friends is what I really assumed it to be.
and what happened? How did
Um,
that change?
Okay. So I started a party with him also.
Okay, you're friends.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
friends. So I started doing drugs here and there with him, here and there. I'd met some people he knew, an old lady being one of them, that I was introduced, and that was his aunt supposedly, which I'm not even sure if that was even a real fact. But the first time I got actually trafficked, we went over to like one of his friend's house, and I was forced to be in a room and have my shirt off while this man jerked off, and I could smoke crack, and that was the only thing I was like allowed to do, but I had to sit there or he wouldn't drive me back home.
So you would have been abandoned at this place.
Yeah, with somebody I didn't even know.
So I hear from you another recurring theme. There is some woman involved, this aunt.
Yeah.
How is she involved? How did you come to know her? I mean, is there anything there?
Yeah, we went over there to like just hang out. She partied too. She was what seemed to be a sweet old lady. I believed the story
Yeah.
about her being an aunt. Like he knew pictures in the house that was like her dead husband's and would tell me stories. So it became like, I don't know, I like knew family history. So I thought.
Hmm.
That was, none of it was true. I highly doubt. Anyways, I ended up being stuck in her attic. Like they wouldn't let me leave. After that incident, there was like a couple other incidents, but at that time I was so ashamed and embarrassed. I just felt like I could do nothing more. Like I wouldn't tell my family, any of my friends, because I was afraid.
How did you get out of the attic?
I got really sick.
Okay.
Like they had been overdosing me over and over again. She was, I don't know, she did something with blood and needles as her career job back in whenever she did that as a job.
Mhm.
So I was never ever like actually conscious too much. I remember one time I saw two men. I don't ever know how I even got up and down the stairs, like
Okay.
at all. But I saw two men have coins out to pay her, or
For
yeah, to
you?
pay her for me. I remember going in the car outside and then nothing after that.
And I think you had an encounter with another trafficker as well.
Mhm.
Okay, so the first one was a taxi cab driver who
Mhm.
offered you rides and built dependency that way, and introduced his aunt, a lovely old lady, into the situation to make you feel safe.
Mhm.
Tell me about the second trafficker. How did you meet him, and what did you think he was?
Um, the second one, actually, I met him on Facebook.
So another Facebook thing.
Another Facebook. No, the other one I just met as a random taxier.
Okay.
So he just like my friend called it, I think ABC Cab actually is the cab site that he was in. The next one was Facebook. And I had posted lots of information about me losing my children and how upset I was. At that time, I pretty much lost all my friends and family because of some mental health problems that I severely started to have.
Okay.
That was making me dependent very much, or I was becoming very dependent on my own pharmaceuticals
Okay.
at that time. I also sold them. So I was involved in a lot of things going on. And so he talked to me, we talked to each other for months and months and months, just as friends. I let him come to my dad's house and we hung out there. We obviously did drugs together. I was his favorite beautiful girl, yada, yada, yada. all that kind of thing. Then we went to go to a party. Girls picked me up in a car with him, and we were just gonna go hang out at another party. I mean, we already partied at my dad's house tons, but then we were going to another party.
Right.
And I thought I was safe because girls were in the car.
Yeah.
And there was all girls and no boys, and it wasn't just one girl, it was a group of girls. So then I felt safe. Then I ended up on Michigan Avenue in a motel.
Okay. And is that where the trafficking sort of commenced from there?
Yes, from that one, definitely.
And, during this, are you experiencing any grooming? Is there any cycle, or did all of that stuff happen before in the lead up?
That was all before.
Okay,
That was literally, I actually had was supposed to, when I got to that motel, like groom other girls.
okay. So again, we're seeing almost like a female, like
A
hierarchy.
switch, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And, how did you get out? How did you escape from there?
He was a real paranoid person.
Okay,
And that was a pretty hot spot on Michigan Avenue for prostitution alone, let alone anything else going
trafficking,
on.
yeah.
And I threatened, because he knew where my dad's house obviously was. I threatened that I would get a hold of my dad, and if I did, my dad would kill him.
Okay,
And then he just like let me leave. It was in the worst area ever, but I got to walk in.
okay. And then, did you encounter a third trafficker at some point?
Yes.
Okay, and, I think were women involved? Can you tell me a little bit about how he approached you and what happened there?
Oh, he was gonna take care of me.
Okay.
So, I mean, it started as friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, of course, he had money and pictures that he showed. He knew that I sold drugs. He also visited like strip clubs. I used to sell drugs to some of those girls. It was a money-making thing for me. I never had to drive, those sort of things. For a long time, I was doing like kind of okay at that point in time, like trying to get my things back together to get my kids. And he would promise me like, oh, I got a lawyer, so you can, just hang out, be my girlfriend, all these things. And I wasn't even interested in him at all. I just kept telling him no. He was like old, and I didn't think of anything of it. Then I became into some hard times for some money.
Okay.
Because life wasn't working out that I needed to. So he introduced me to this lady at a massage parlor. And then he dropped me up. The first time I just met her, we talked.
Pardon the interruption. I think we left Cynthia at a massage parlor. Pardon my crassness, Cynthia. So he's introduced you to this woman at a massage parlor. Can I ask you a question first?
Yeah.
What did you think he did for a living? Like, what did you think his
Well,
story
he said he
was?
was a retired police officer.
Okay, so your friend who's a retired police officer who's going to get you a lawyer, and now knows that you are hard up for some funds, has introduced you to a woman who owns a massage parlor.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through what happens next?
Okay, well, I met the female. She took me into like her suite of where she performed the massages that was implied to me. It had like a nice bathroom. I mean, it was like a whole setup, like a whole legit looking setup.
Like spa, like I would go there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spa.
Okay.
Anybody would like, it would be a nice place to go.
Yeah.
Then we went out to lunch. So I saw that, then I briefly saw the other rooms that had just a standard massage table and a heated towel little thing. I mean, it was definitely not fancy like the other ones, like hers.
Okay.
But then we went out to lunch, me and her. She took me out to lunch. I was hungry. I was actually homeless at this time, so I didn't have anywhere to live. I was hungry, so it was nice that we talked. She told me about her boyfriend and her children. I mean, she had a whole story too that sounded pretty good. She brought me back to the massage parlor and told me that she had to go get her kids or something, but she had someone coming by for a massage. So I said, oh, okay. She said, it's a new room. I said, what's that? She said, you're naked. And I was like, you're naked. No one's at the massage parlor, by the way. Just
Okay.
me. I'm all by myself. And I was like, naked. She said, yeah, you gotta let the person in. They'll give you money. They didn't give me a debit card, all that kind of thing. So I was stuck there. I had nowhere to go. That guy had left. And so I did it
Okay.
because I really didn't feel like I had a choice.
Well, I mean, it was sort of employment in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told my family actually I was gonna work there.
Oh, you thought you had found a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And did you see any of the money?
I think like $20 out of all the money.
And was it just the one gentleman, or did eventually more gentlemen come for?
More did, yeah.
So you were sold to other men as well.
Yeah.
And how did you get out of that?
I actually took a bus back
Okay.
to my girlfriend's house and I begged to live there. Like I told her a story. I was like, look, I have nowhere to go. I mean, I just sold it.
So when you were talking to me about, the first time these things happened to you and the woman in the attic, you mentioned fear and shame. What is that story? How does that play into all of this, especially after the trafficking, especially after, as you try to put yourself back together, what is the fear and shame doing? How does that stay with you?
I still feel really paranoid. It took me a long time being at Sanctum House to even leave the house.
Okay.
Like I still have trouble when I go places with being afraid.
I actually, because my trafficker for the most part was a man, I have trouble with men. I have trouble having conversations with men or being one-on-one with men. Do you encounter that too?
Yeah, I feel terrified of both sexes, honestly, because I've had such a mix. I was at my sister's house and her mother-in-law came from upstairs and I still really like wanted to run away from the house. I looked all over to like escape. And
How do you heal from that? What does that journey look like?
being in a stable place is key. Stable, love. I mean, other people that know what you're going through really helps that process. I mean, there's a lot of people involved in Sanctum House. A lot. Nobody even realizes how many, but I've met like one of the best friends I could possibly meet there with my mentor. She's amazing.
She volunteers.
Yeah, she's a volunteer.
Yeah.
We go out weekly and we just have a blast. So like feeling like that sense of community, you get community back. I actually volunteer at Cares, a grocery store. And I wasn't able to do that when I started there. And it took me a long time to get my nerve up, but now I got asked to be like a permanent volunteer there. So I am able to go do that when I leave Sanctum House. Doing therapy really helps. All sorts of, we have group therapy and then we have personal therapy.
How does community, so I hear you talking a lot about therapy, obviously, and I've been there. Yes, I love trauma therapy, but community too, right?
Yeah.
How does this, how do you go from feeling worthless to feeling like you matter? What kind of battle? For me, it's a battle. I mean, what kind of fight is that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you're so worried about everybody, everything. Details become really important to you. You judge people because you're really afraid of, and every little step that you take, doing something, volunteering, participating in the community at home, like everything starts to add up and matter, where you start to feel like, oh, I can do this. And this little step turns into a bigger step and a bigger step.
Do you expect to be healing for the rest of your life?
I mean, I expect to grow for the rest of my life. So yeah, I'd have to say I do expect to heal for the rest of my life.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. I really appreciate it. So again, friends, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope through the sharing of these intimate stories that we've educated you, that we've inspired you. And I hope that somewhere along the line, we can say that we've moved from friends to brothers and sisters in peace and brothers and sisters in justice. Again, I would encourage you to visit the Plymouth Canton United Way, Their generous grant made all of this possible. If you're looking to provide that sense of safety to survivors, if you're looking to provide the love, the community, I would encourage you to reach out to sanctumhouse.org. You can find them online, and they are always accepting volunteers. And finally, you can get involved with Pearls of Great Price, who brought us here today. You can donate on their website. That's pearlsofgreatprice.net. They're also very happy to take new members. They're very involved, not only in the awareness part of the human trafficking issue, but also in providing direct support to these women through Sanctum House and through other means. They meet every Thursday, every fourth Thursday at the Hilltop Church in Novi. You can also Zoom those meetings. And I hope that you feel moved to get involved. As I mentioned earlier, human trafficking is the second largest crime in Michigan. These women, these children, these men who are victims, they are everywhere. And I think you heard time and again that it can happen to anyone, that these traffickers are smart, they find your vulnerabilities, and they know how to exploit people for profit. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about turning people into goods. And Plymouth Canton United Way takes a stand against that. Sanctum House takes a stand against that. Pearls of Great Price takes a stand against that. And you can too. So I would encourage you to get involved. I would encourage you to share the recording that you're going to be able to find on the Pearls of Great Price YouTube channel and on their Facebook page. I would encourage you to like their Facebook page. I would encourage you to volunteer your time, your treasure, your talents, but most of all, just an open heart. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for letting us trust you. Thank you for letting us share our stories to help others. And I hope we can all go forth in a Holy Spirit, help one another, and make the world a better place. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.